So, our next guest is reimagining farming and hospitality literally from the ground up. As founder of the Free Company in Edinburgh, Charlie Buchanan-Smith has built a regenerative food system that connects soil, animals, crops and people in a true circular model. From award-winning sustainability practices to his community-focused dining experiences, Charlie and his family are proving that farming can be commercially viable, it can be environmentally restorative, and also deeply human. He's a passionate advocate for change and a champion of regeneration. So I'm sure everyone at the summit today will join me in welcoming Charlie to our 2025 summit lineup. Charlie, massive thank you for joining us today. It's a great privilege to welcome you to our virtual stage.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be part of the summit. So yeah, thanks for inviting me along.
No worries. Just a quick message to those of you that are joining as Trend Hub subscribers. You can discover more about the topics covered in this particular discussion in our 26-27 food and drink trends framework, particularly in two mega trends that we've called Waste Not and Resource Wise, as well as the Planet Watching content stream, where you'll find lots of content that's very relevant to this particular discussion. So, Charlie, let's jump in and if we can, let's start at the beginning. Can you share a bit about the journey from, we had a conversation a few weeks ago, you're talking about this pop-up dinners with local farmers to now running this 400-acre regenerative farm and restaurant today. How did it all happen?
My brother and I, we run the Free Company now, but sort of wind the clock back before that. We came from a family farming background. We're the fourth generation of, well, meant to be dairy farmers.
Yeah.
But sadly in 2002, the dairy stopped working. It was no longer viable. And I think as we were actually both studying at the time, and there was a sort of dairy crisis back in 2014, and we wanted to do something about it. So we started a project called En route back in the summer of 2014, where we traveled around farms and basically started a pop-up restaurant around the UK.
Okay.
We'd arrive on a farm on the Monday, and we'd run restaurant evenings Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in a field, very rudimentary, cooking over fire. And all we were trying to do with this sort of like 3-month-long project was to connect farmers and people in the local area, and sort of get farmers to speak at these meals where menus were created with what was being literally produced in the fields around where that dinner was happening. And we'd start conversations around sort of a little localized food system, and say, did you know this farmer, they have goats and you can buy goat's milk from down the road. And it was definitely not a financially viable business plan, but it was a really interesting concept, and it was a lot of fun doing it. And we sort of realized off the back of that if we had a permanent location for running a farm to table restaurant, it'd be something that we would not only love doing, but something that had legs as it sort of gained a bit of traction for the sort of 3 months we did it. Move the clock forward to 2016, and it was when our dad sort of came to us and said, look, I've unfortunately going to have to sell the farm. And we'd sort of, over the sort of 4 years prior, we'd become more and more interested in the agricultural system as it was, and sort of obviously growing up around it, sort of realizing that not everything was right with our food system. It came to this point of not only a slight necessity for our family farm that it was needing to change if we wanted to keep hold of the family farm, keep things going here, but also just to try and play a part in shaping a food system in some way. And that's sort of when we started the Free Company here on the farm. And yeah, we obviously grew up on this dairy farm. It's quite an intensive, quite very high input, conventional system.
Yeah.
And we knew that if we wanted to start a farm to table restaurant on the farm, it definitely wasn't going to be the same style of farming, because it already proved once that it doesn't work here.
Yeah.
And I think as the story is going, is more and more people are realizing that conventional systems aren't built for the future.
Yeah.
And we started growing veg organically on a very small plot at the front of the old steading here, and then we had about 30 pigs, and that was what formed the menus for the first 3 years. And now we're at a system where we're farming on 400 acres, and we're we're a fully mixed regenerative system with native breeds of cows, sheep, pigs, and yeah, growing fruit and vegetables on about 6 acres now. So yeah.
What an incredible journey. I have to say, I do wish back in 2014 that I wish I'd have come to or known about the pop-ups that you're running on farms. I mean, in its rawest sense, that must have been, yeah, phenomenal to sort of see that kind of connection happening with local people and farmers, and yeah, that sort of founding inspiration come together must have been incredible.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was amazing the support that just in sort of 5 days of being in a place that people were so keen to be like to get involved, to be there, to have a seat at the table,
Yeah,
and to just get engaging with their farmers who they've been living beside for however long, and not knowing exactly
yeah.
how they could source some of their food, and and get involved within their little food system.
What did I have to ask? I'm imagining a conversation where you're almost sort of pitching this idea to your father. What did he think at the time, and how does he feel about it now?
We're really lucky in some sense because that his when he was running the farm, it didn't go the way that he'd hoped,
Yeah,
and it didn't go the way in which his the same way in which his father had been running it, and he kind of come to terms with the fact that what it wasn't something for the future, and he'd always well, both our parents had encouraged us to move away from
yeah,
farming altogether. So there definitely was a bit of skepticism that we were like suddenly interested in farming and trying to build a business based around food on the farm.
yeah,
That then compound that with the fact that we wanted to be organic, we wanted to be
yeah,
a sustainable food business. Him having a very different background and I guess ideology on how to produce food.
yeah,
But he was very supportive in the direction we wanted to take it, and sort of said, yeah, absolutely give it your best shot and see what can come of it. And I think that as we started seeing the land and the soil reacting really positively pretty quickly,
yeah,
and then also we're really lucky that our guest reaction to coming and sitting around the table here on the farm was really positive.
yeah,
That obviously like gave my dad the confidence that actually there might be something in this, and
yeah.
that we should keep running with it. And yeah, but yeah, both my parents have been super 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 super
Okay.
supportive ever since then.
No, fantastic. Um, Certainly, in when we talk to chefs, and they often talk about, I guess, a philosophy, which can be kind of, it's quite a kind of grand term, but I suppose at its heart, what does the free company stand for? And at that sort of level, how would you describe what it is that you're trying to do, what you kind of stand for, if you like?
Yeah, I guess first and foremost, it was about just trying to reconnect people with food, consumers with where food is being produced, and starting a conversation around the table on a farm.
Yeah,
There's no better place, and that was really what we wanted to do right back in 2017 when the first night of the restaurant opened here. But then as things have moved forward, I guess our aims have really been trying to reimagine a small scale regenerative circular food system, and one that works for this farm specifically. There's no sort of like prescriptive blueprint that you can copy and paste regenerative systems around the country or around the world, but we were lucky enough to fairly organically let our model evolve and
mhm,
and work out what was best for the soil here, the climate, the aspect, all of the localized growing conditions, and that's what's evolved. And by no means is the sort of the system we've got to now our finished perfect model, but
yeah,
it's now really starting to work for us, and it's definitely taken a few years to get there. But the results are really showing in the health of our pastures, of our livestock, um, and of the product that we're able to to harvest from it.
fantastic. I mean, you touched when you answered a question earlier, and you referred to it then. You really have built a truly mixed system from where the original origins of the farming, cattle, sheep, and pigs and vegetables, all kind of almost kind of feeding into each other. Can you sort of bring that to life a little bit and give us some examples of how that circularity actually kind of plays out in practice, kind of day to day?
It was definitely an aim for us to have as mixed a system as possible when we started. We obviously just started with some pigs,
Mm-hmm.
um, but and obviously growing veg. But we wanted to create as diverse system as possible, not only from a financial security point of view, in the sense that if one crop or one aspect of the system wasn't doing so well, there would be something else to fall back on. But also because we were able to start drawing these little symbiotic links between each sort of facet of the agricultural business. So, for example, with our veg and our market garden and our pigs, the perfect link there is that veg scraps that aren't haven't met the quality that we want to make it into our kitchen, they get fed to our pigs, and in return our pigs turn that into a really nice compost that then goes back out into the market garden. And then our cows and sheep, we graze them all together, and they
Right.
have so many different symbiotic relationships between them, from them being really positive, parasitically beneficial to each other,
Yeah. Yeah.
for things like their own worms within one of their stomachs can't survive in the other one, and it cancels each other out on that front. And then also what they graze slightly differently, so it makes sense for the pasture. um, and then also being able to later, after the cows and sheep have grazed pasture, being able to introduce the pigs into that. They graze in a different way as well. And when the cows come inside for a couple months in the winter, the compost they produce from their bedding is also what helps us to produce really healthy fruit and veg. So yeah, there's some of the links, and then obviously having a restaurant in the middle of that ties a whole lot more of that together. And then using the restaurant almost like as a shop front for our farm shop. For you hopefully guests come, they have a nice time, and then they want to get hold of some of your produce after that, and it gives you another little outlet off the back of that. So yeah, all these little links, and we see them all over the place, across the farm.
Do you obviously you supply the restaurant and the farm shop? Does that also extend out to other commercial businesses as well? Do you supply other restaurants and or
Ever since 2020, we sort of got to the scale agriculturally where we could start supplying. The amount we were producing here was outstripping what we could consume in the restaurant. So yeah, we supply about 15 different restaurants across Edinburgh and Glasgow now.
yeah.
And that's for the combination of our meat and veg. And it's really nice being able to, obviously, for us, primarily supporting our own restaurant, but then also supplying other chefs who have an understanding of good produce, and we kind of know what they're looking for. It's really nice to be able to work within that hospitality community as well, and yeah, support them as we do that as well.
That's incredible. You touched a couple of times on particular terms that I'd just like to explore. So you started with an ambition to be organic, but regeneration goes a bit further than that. How do you sort of explain the difference between organic and regenerative to, I guess, a layperson to a consumer? And I suppose, almost why does it matter, really?
The basic principles of organics is producing food without any synthetic fertilizers or herbicides, pesticides, any chemicals, really. Yeah, being a regenerative system as well as being organic goes beyond that, and it looks at your soil. You're looking to build soil. You're looking to improve the fertility within your soil. Carbon's another aspect of regenerative systems where you're looking to lock more carbon into the soil year on year.
Uh-huh.
And then there's also social aspects to a regenerative system. To be
Yeah.
truly regenerative, at least for us, it's about nourishing people in the local community, or providing people in the local community with nutrient dense, ethically produced food, and also providing actually viable jobs as well. And yeah, it's a regenerative system is a lot more holistic, at least from our perspective, and it's looking at things on a much more circular basis, where yeah, you've got to look at the much bigger picture rather than just one aspect of the, not one aspect like organics, but organics is just one aspect of our system here.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. No, brilliant. That's super helpful, I think, because these are terms that are often kind of talked about, but and as you know, there'll be people in the audience today from an agricultural setting, but keen, yeah, to understand, and we'll come on. Actually, we'll talk a little bit about consumer education in a bit, but how actually we take that message to consumers and actually present it to them in a way that they can understand and relate to their everyday kind of food choices.
yeah, and I guess the one sort of thing about regenerative systems and the regenerative buzz term is you know it has a lot of potential, but it also has right now, especially, it's got huge room to be slightly abused as a term and used to greenwash things. Um, Organics and organic certifications have been around for a really long time, and the parameters are kind of widely agreed upon, of what it takes for something to be organic. Whereas within a regenerative system, there are so many different practices that you can have within your regenerative system. And whilst there are now certifying bodies like Regenified who are coming to the fore to actually ensure that people are upheld if they're saying that they are a regenerative system. There's so much room for a business to do one aspect or have one regenerative practice and then call their entire business a regenerative
Yeah.
system. Um, where so yeah, where they may be spraying glyphosate everywhere, but they might not plow some of their fields. They're suddenly a regenerative system. And
Yeah.
if you're looking at, you start delving into what that's doing to soil health, you'll probably find out that it's not actually regenerating your soils. You're damaging it in a different way.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
do you welcome that sort of that type of certification? I guess that yeah, that sort of that badging that is that something that you think is important?
yeah, I think it is, and I think that it's yeah, it's sort of it's a double-edged sword in some ways, because the sort of opportunity for businesses to start transitioning towards being regenerative is is great before having to take on a full, like, certified a full case of certification. It's great because people can start making steps towards doing that before having to take on what is a really onerous task of going through a certification. We just had our soil association organic certification last week, and it was 3 days with an assessor looking at every aspect of it. And it's obviously a lot of time and resources you put into just maintaining that certification, but it's really encouraging to know how thorough you have to be to actually
Yeah.
maintain and achieve that. And that rigor is, I think really important. And I think that, yeah, I think that certifications are important, but also we need to be able to give people the chance to to move towards it. And
Yeah.
that's why things like wild farmed grains, they're kind of a middle ground right now, which is an important place to be able to get to before going the whole way.
Yeah, and to recognize that it is any kind of movement from a conventional system to fully regenerative is a journey. But yeah, you want to be able to recognize that that level of commitment that an operation is moving in that direction, but yeah, it takes time, doesn't it, to get
Yeah,
there, kind of build
yeah,
infrastructure and the models, because as you've said, they're completely different and they're also unique to every operation as well.
yeah. And land and soil takes a bit of time to respond to what you're doing.
Yeah,
So yeah, so being realistic and being phased with businesses. And obviously, again, notoriously, farming is not the most profitable business to be or sector to be a part of. So yeah, being realistic and enabling these phase approaches are really important.
you touched on something there. Actually, skeptics often ask if regenerative farming can be financially sustainable. I think, how have you proved that your model stacks up? commercially, and I'm assuming it is a commercial model, and it does work for you. But have you proved that it stacks up without perhaps looking to the outside for funding and all those types of things?
Yeah, I think especially speaking to other farmers who come along to the restaurant and they say, it's great you're doing, you're not mob grazing the way you're doing, and you're moving your animals every day, and you're no dig. But obviously, you're only able to do this because you have a restaurant and you're able to get that premium. That's not actually how we run our business. We made sure from the start that if we're going to farm in a regenerative way and farm sustainably, it's not only got to make sense for the environment, for the animals, for the people, but it also needs to work for the business. And so we way back when we were starting each enterprise, we split them out and we look at everything individually. Whilst they're all part of a larger system, we need to make sure that our pig enterprise actually stacks up and can compete with market prices. And the exact same goes for our sheep and our cattle, and as well as our veg. And whilst there can be times where you have a tricky season or a tricky year for one aspect of it, we're constantly looking at as the market values of lamb or of mutton or of beef versus what it's actually costing us to produce it in that year, and making sure that our prices are changed accordingly, but also match market prices or as close as can be. We're not just going to keep doing, or we're never going to keep running an aspect of this business if it just doesn't make sense anymore. Because I guess we'd be slightly hypocritical in showcasing what a regenerative mixed system can look like. But if it doesn't actually stack up, then.
And is that a proof point when you speak to other farmers? Does that actually, because it's similar kind of skepticism, I guess, but is that a proof point for them when actually you can articulate that?
Yeah, and I think that the key for us is, and what we'd always try and encourage other people to do, is just getting that direct route to market for your produce. If you can somehow get your produce from your field and speak directly to your customers and sell directly to your customers, that's really where it works, and that's exactly how our food systems used to work in these hyper localized systems where people are eating whole foods direct from farms, and that's really the direction that I see, and the necessity for our food system to move in. So that's always how we, at least when speaking to other farmers, we say that's what really works for us, whilst also always keeping an eye on what the actual market prices are doing. And therefore, the price that you'll see of meat in our online farm shop is very similar to organic meat you see in a supermarket.
We've referred a little bit to kind of impact and soil. Obviously, the actual it is literally the bedrock of any system. But how do you measure impact? Have you worked with ecologists and soil scientists to sort of measure soil health, and what broadly what have those results shown, and how do you go about sort of measuring and proving that actually it is regenerative and that regeneration does work?
We've worked with both ecologists and soil scientists. More recently with ecologists looking at insect and bird life on the farm and comparing our farm to neighboring farms which are conventionally managed. The nice thing that they pretty quickly were able to say in terms of the insect front is that we have about 8 times more pollinating insects here on the farm than neighboring farms do. And then with the person that came and looked at birds and bats, they said that the one thing that was pretty amazing, I think the figures are that if you have a healthy ecosystem, you have between 6 to 8 bats per hectare, and we have about 50. And it was pretty clear. He showed us these videos of it's actually based around our cows and our sheep, our livestock herds, and he showed us this video of him going out with an infrared camera at dusk to film the bats around the cows and the sheep, and it is unbelievable. It's almost like swarms of like mosquitoes around around the livestock there, which is pretty cool to see that when you're not treating any of the livestock with any insecticides or anything like that, or wormers, that the insect life is obviously abundant, and therefore the birds and bats that follow that are also thriving. And then on the soil front, we took some soil tests way back in 2021 when we'd taken we'd started farming some ground that was conventional a couple of years before, and what we'd done with the ground is just plant some cover crops, and we're looking at one of the key indicators was looking at available amounts of nitrogen, and the neighboring pasture were areas that had been conventionally managed and had artificial nitrogen applied to them. And after about 6 months of these cover crops going in, we had about 50 times more available nitrogen than fields that had nitrogen artificially applied, which again is super encouraging to see just how quickly nature can react to letting it do its thing and running its natural course. We are sort of really driven going forward to have more soil scientists onto the farm and more studies done, because this is what's really needing to be done to show that to prove just how powerful regenerative systems can be. And we've just teamed up with a business called Regenerate Outcomes, who we're working with them at least for the next 5 years. And they're going to be measuring soil carbon and also soil fertility across the farm, and seeing how it changes every year. One thing we're always doing, which is, a slightly less scientific approach, is just we go and sample the soil ourselves. We take we dig out little holes. We look at the soil. We look at things like soil aggregates, which is where essentially carbon is aggregating in the soil. And that's something that's been really encouraging to see for us, that we see more and more of these aggregates. There's like this sort of like globby soil, globby little soil, very dark soil, like particles that come together that you're able to see in the soil itself. And that's just one thing that we visibly can see.
To be able to physically see it as well, you often imagine that this is all sort of, it's all happening at a micro level, which of course it is, but to see it physically changing as well, almost must feel quite rewarding as well, to see it happening in practice.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing that's coming off the back of that is the resilience of our pastures to have more livestock being stocked on it, and also its resilience for sort of like holding water, for dealing with really wet periods, for dealing with really dry periods. It's just becoming more and more resilient, and as a result it makes our business much more
and it sounds like you can probably sustain more as well on the ground. If it's better, if it's healthier, if it's richer, then it can do more, it can give more, I guess.
And that's entirely true by I'm proven just by our stocking numbers. The number of head of livestock we now have is greater than the previous conventional farmer who is here, which is so encouraging, and that's without us applying anything but just letting the cows and the sheep do their thing on the pasture.
I want to talk a little bit about some awards, because you've won some fairly major awards from the Sustainable Restaurant Association, also the Australia Dam Sustainability Award. How important are those? Obviously, it's going to feel fantastic to be, sort of awarded those, but how important is it in driving kind of credibility and consumer awareness in the operation?
First and foremost, for ourselves and for our team, it's it's really, really nice to get recognized, and to win those awards. We're obviously absolutely delighted, and it gives you that sort of stamp of approval that what you're doing is you're going in the right direction, and it does, I think it does give your customers more confidence in you as well. Obviously, we've never sort of started what we're doing to try and win awards, but they definitely are a really nice sort of pat on the back to keep driving in this direction, and also to see all the other businesses that are doing pretty amazing things now across
Yeah.
hospitality and agriculture sectors that are sort of pushing everyone else along. They definitely help.
Well, and I suppose that leads a little bit on to sort of, I guess, connection and education, which has got, I'm sure, as a foundational part of this. How do you sort of approach consumer education? And I suppose, what do you find resonates with the kind of guests in your community? You know, out of all the things that you can communicate, what are those things that people really connect with?
I think the sort of best reactions from our customers we get is when we actually get them on site and we're talking through what we're doing in person,
Yeah,
and they can practically, physically see it, feel it, touch it, taste it.
yeah,
Um, that's when you're really able to start drawing these connections, and that's when you can start, the things that we talk about in our newsletters or in our our weekly email to our farm shop subscribers and stuff like that. That's when you can suddenly see these like light bulb moments go of, oh, okay, this is why this matters and this is why it's different to a conventional system, and that kind of makes sense why that doesn't actually work or doesn't have the longevity in it that this system does. Yeah, I would say that's where we're able to see the biggest positive reaction from our customer base. And
yeah.
yeah, it's an absolute, yeah, it's a real pleasure to be able to, I guess, share our passion, enthusiasm for what's happening on the ground here with people that support us.
No, that's brilliant because I think if this, taking this message more broadly out to a consumer base, I think in understanding what kind of resonance and what those kind of hooks are, I think is really important because when a system, particularly at the moment, when a system is not so clearly defined through kind of regulation and that kind of thing, there are different, I guess, different people talk about different aspects of regeneration. I think it's important to try and get a handle on what are the things that you find that really work when you're talking to consumers.
I think that most people don't get the chance and don't get enough of a chance nowadays to get out and see what's happening in our food system. Our food system is, you know, pretty opaque, I think, in terms of showing what's happening behind the scenes and
Yeah.
explaining. And I think consumers are, find it difficult to, a lot of people, they want to make the right choices but aren't entirely sure of how to. And I think that it's a really important part of just trying to reconnect people again with food, and with food that's local to them. People come around pretty quickly to then understanding what is the right thing for them to be consuming, um and why.
I think so. I think some of the mistrust around food can come from well, you mentioned it there, the opacity. It's that when you can't, when it's not transparent, then you think and consider all sorts of things, and then that's where that kind of mistrust comes in. But as you say, when you're completely transparent, when you can see it, that helps build that trust, doesn't it?
No, absolutely. And I think that that's that's possibly what's been built up by
Yeah.
supermarkets, maybe intentionally, for a number of years. And yeah, I think that's, yeah, creating a transparent system is what's really important, and what, yeah, definitely builds that trust.
Obviously, we were just talking about awards and the success and those types of things, but what have been some of the hardest challenges when building the regenerative business that you've got now? And
I think at the start, it's definitely when we were trying to scale what we are doing agriculturally, it was the route to market. It's pretty difficult to open up those routes to market. And again, like, yeah, supermarkets definitely have a pretty tight grip on that aspect of the supply chain.
mm,
So it took us a good while to sort of properly work out how to break through and how um, to build, build that customer base, and build those outlets. Obviously, social media is a great tool for being able to do that. But that was definitely one challenge. And then I think, again, at the start, it was probably like actually just trying to get hold of the knowledge. We
yeah,
we don't have, whilst we're lucky enough to grow up on a working farm, albeit a very different style of farm. We don't have the traditional agricultural training, and and we definitely didn't have the agricultural training to be regenerative. So there was a knowledge gap there that we've had to learn through trial and error and through speaking with other farmers from around the world, and reading and learning a lot. So that's been a tricky thing to overcome. But yeah, there's definitely been a lot of trial and error, and I would say that is one aspect where, because we have the restaurant that sits at the center of our business, it has enabled us a little bit more flexibility to, probably financial flexibility to be able to continue to develop and new agricultural practices, and try things that if you're a hill farmer in the north of Scotland, you might not have that ability to do that. And I think of some trials we've done here that have gone terribly wrong. For example, we decided to plant out 100 acres with cover crop with a direct drill, which basically means drilling straight into pasture. This was back in 2020, and I think it cost us about £5,000 or £6,000,
Uh-huh.
and not a single thing grew. It was as we were trying to develop our farm on a wider scale, and we were kind of absolutely devastated. We were like, we can't,
Yeah.
can't afford to do that. And yeah, I think yeah. So there's definitely some harsh lessons like that. But yeah, ultimately we've now built a team of incredibly talented, passionate people who for the most part nowadays, we definitely still make some wrong decisions, but for the most part we've worked out our system that works really well for us, and we've got the people to execute what we're trying to do.
You must have a
um,
really super diverse skill set as well within the business. From chefs and kind of restaurateurs and front of house people to the agricultural growing, harvesting, retailing, marketing. What an incredible skill set of people you must have there.
yeah, there's about 30 of us that work here, and there's definitely a lot of people that wear a lot of different hats,
Yeah, I bet.
on the same day. And yeah, incredible. We obviously wouldn't be able to do anything we do without them. From people who work as a shepherd for part of the day and then become a butcher and then a delivery driver on some days.
Wow.
Having a mixed business requires people who have mixed skill sets, and want to work across different areas. And yeah, we're lucky enough to have some pretty special people who do that.
It's a very broad church of attendees today. We're speaking in front of some CEOs of global businesses. What one lesson from your experience would you want them to take away?
I think it's important for them to get out onto farms, and I think go and see conventional systems, see what find out what that's doing for the people, for the ecology around that farm, for the soil, and go and see truly regenerative systems, and see what's happening there. I think that most people are either realizing or being forced to switch to regenerative
Hmm.
practices because of whether it's a cost thing, because it's actually much cheaper to be farming in a regenerative way, or just because conventional systems are no longer working in the way that in which people thought they would work. I think getting out there and gaining that knowledge, enables them to make decisions that are actually for the future, and for the people that these businesses are meant to serve.
This is quite profound, actually, when you see it. I spent some time actually with a fellow speaker at today's summit, Ian from Farm Ed, and actually when you see him with a spade actually put it into the ground, and because it is an education environment, he runs both systems to demonstrate the differences. And actually, when you see him put a spade into the ground and to take out a soil sample from a conventional system and a regenerative system, it really is quite profound when he's like holding up great kind of clods of earth, and you really can see it and feel it. Back to your point earlier on, it's worth
Yeah. Yeah, whilst those the things that you can, the things that are happening are from a micro scale right up
Yeah,
to a scale where you pull out a clod of dirt and you can
yeah,
you can see which clod looks healthy and which clod looks a bit inert,
yeah,
and these conventional systems are essentially running on life support machines with
yeah,
all those inputs
yeah.
that's really what your food becomes.
You mentioned there, and I've heard it sort of coined before. Conventional farming is running out of road. What does the future for you, when you look forward? What do you think that system looks like, and what role does regenerative farming, regeneration, where does that fit in that future horizon?
Yeah, I think if we are to have a long, healthy future, I think our food system needs to switch back to being a hyper localized food system based on eating whole foods, from the area around where you live, and we need to try and deglobalize our food system as much as possible. These regenerative systems will no doubt become more diverse, more mixed,
Yeah,
um, with with farming with nature. But I truly believe it's the necessity, and farms will be either driven to do that, or they will not. They won't have a place in farming. Just it won't work for them anymore. Yeah, and I think it's being proved more and more often by systems that are now truly regenerative that
yeah.
it makes sense in every aspect, from environmental to financial to nutritional, um, to societal. That a mixed whole food based regenerative system is the way to go.
Do you believe from your experience that this is a system that can feed in large population cities, big groups of people, if it is adopted much more widely, that actually all of our food can come from these types of systems?
I mean, I absolutely agree with that, and I think that there are people that are showing that regenerative agriculture is for large scale
Yeah,
systems.
yeah,
People in North America, like Gabe Brown, Alan Williams, White Oak Pastures, they are farming on hundreds of thousands of acres, producing huge quantities of food, um, and doing so very successfully. Um,
mhm,
and and then taking that to us here, we're farming on sort of a medium-sized 400 acres here,
mhm.
but the fact that we already have higher stocking rates
Yeah,
than previous conventional farmers before us, it's showing that it has the capacity to produce enough food, and in some cases more food than a system or a conventional system that came before. Um, that combined with, you look at things like rates of desertification and
yeah.
soil infertility of areas that have been really hard conventional agriculture. It's showing that it's kind of the only the only way to go. There's definitely aspects, and there's definitely things that people are still working out, within. I think the horticulture sector is one area that's still trying to work out how to
Yeah,
be truly regenerative, because of the how punishing it is on the soil, especially on larger scales. But I mean, if there were a load more small scale market gardens like ours that produces 70 different varieties of fruit and vegetable
wow.
every year, on really small areas of land, and provides proper jobs for people, then that probably would go quite a long way to solving that sector as well.
No, brilliant. My last question, and I suppose it's a bit of a call to action, really. For all these people that are joining the summit today, if you could ask them to do one thing tomorrow in their business, in their community, or perhaps even their kind of personal choice to accelerate regenerative change, what would it be?
Probably go and seek out your local food producers. Go and visit them. Go to their farm shops. Go and see how you can source some of their produce. You'd probably be surprised that prices on their shelves are not very different to what you see in the shops. And in some cases, once you get into meat box schemes or veg box schemes, it actually becomes more convenient than
Yeah.
necessities to go into shops as well. But it's making that, it's a slight culture change, it's a slight routine shift to shopping, changing your shopping habits slightly, but it makes a massive difference in supporting these small businesses and groups of people that are working on land and working responsibly on land to produce what will be much more nutrient dense, non-processed foods. So yeah, that'd be the main thing
Get out there, connect locally, be curious. Yeah.
yeah, and ask questions as well. I think that's definitely one thing that we always encourage every guest that walks through the door of the restaurant here is be curious about every dish you get or what they've seen on the farm, and continue to build that, those the networks of transparency and knowledge sharing that small farms have, and the culture within agriculture that's really important.
Brilliant. But honestly, I feel like I could chat to you all morning. A call to action, I guess, for me is that if any of you are in and around the Edinburgh area, what are you, 20, 30 minutes outside of Edinburgh?
Yeah, 25
Seek
minutes.
out the Free Company. I'm very excited. I've got a table in an upcoming trip to Scotland in a few weeks' time, so I'm very excited about visiting. And if any of you are up there, please do seek out the Free Company. But Charlie, massive, massive thank you from Team TFP, the 2025 Summit audience, for sharing your, of course, your expertise and your knowledge, but I think your personal story of how you've taken and been inspired by some of your experiences and what's gone before you to create this incredible circular system to demonstrate that this can be a viable route forward. It's been a great honour to talk to you. So thank you so much for your time and for joining the summit today.
Thanks. No, thanks very much for having me on and inviting me to be here.